Hello viewers, welcome back. We are now looking at row grouping. So in this video, we want to discuss grouping and in particular row grouping. This can really help to add another professional element to our formattings, but it can also help to make your model more easy to navigate for your audience. So let's jump in and take a look at how that can be done. So now we definitely want to do this with the keyboard. So let's go up here into this data section of the ribbon. This is where we do the row grouping using the data section of the ribbon. We are going to explore with the mouse to learn some of the keyboard shortcuts that we can actually use. So let's move all the way here to data section of the ribbon. Go to data section of the ribbon, and now we are within the data section of the ribbon. So we want to see from this section here, we can see group and group. There are so many things that we can see from this outline section or outline tab of data section of the ribbon. So we can see that all the way here we have those values. If we try to click in here, or if we try to put in the mouse, we can actually see how certain things are going to look like. So from here we can see the grouping, how things are done, and we can also see the keyboard shortcut, because this is basically what we came to first navigate, or we first explore with the mouse. The shortcut for grouping is Shift plus Alt plus right arrow. That's for grouping. So we have seen the shortcut for grouping. And now over here, if we try to put our cursor on that ungroup icon, we can see that the keyboard shortcut for it is Shift plus Alt plus left arrow. That's to ungroup. So those are the things we want to give a try and see what will happen. So we are going to apply grouping to this assumption section here. The assumption section. So we want now to start from here, because this section is the one that we want to have something that is that's where I want to group. So if we are grouping this one is within row 3. So if you are grouping this, you can't start grouping in that same section again, because it will be like you want this section to appear. So if we are grouping from this row, what we do, we normally skip one line. We skip that very line, and then we put our cursor in the next line. So we are going to put our cursor in this row 4. That's where we are going to put our cursor before we go to the use of those, because we are going to mainly use the keyboard shortcut. We are not going to use the mouse. So we start from that point here in row 4, because remember we are taking section per section. In other words, the whole of this information, we need it that is within this section. The whole of this from this point up to here, we need all that information. Actually, we need it up to this point. this last one line. That's why here you see when we started our model, we skipped 2 lines. We skipped this, and at the same time, we skipped that one. So we skipped, there are 2 lines. That was the reason. The reason is to keep 1 line. Even here, we are leaving 1 line just to separate things, to be a little bit professional. So let's now start from this line here. That's the row that we are going to focus on. So what we are going to do, we are going to start in that row 4. And we are going to hold down the shift key. We go all the way to row 13. You can use the shift key. We hold down the shift key. We move like this up to row 13 there. That's where we want to be. So what we are going to do, we are not going to include row 14 because we want to skip at least 1 line. We start from row 4 to row 13. So we know the things that we are going to use. We hold down the shift key, then we also tap the alt key, and then we use the right arrow. We've used the right arrow. Now you are seeing there is that a small key that comes. Remember, I've just highlighted only this column. So it is asking, are we grouping the rows or we are grouping the columns? Remember, we are taking the columns. Otherwise, we would have highlighted everything. So we come here and take rows alone. So we can maybe undo that. Instead of highlighting only that point, because others, you may not be asked that question and you start wondering. If you just use, maybe you just take these values, you hold down your shift key, you go up to 13, then you move down, move this side. We can stop at that point. Then you use shift, alt, right arrow. It will be the same thing. Here we are not taking columns, we are taking rows, because these are the rows. Because we want our grouping to appear this side, not this side. When you hit OK, you will see that it has come. This is what we are talking about. So you are seeing here, I've collapsed it. I've collapsed the assumption. I can only see the heading assumption, but I can't see what is in the assumption until I come here and collapse this area there. So that's the kind of grouping that we are talking about. So we can do the same for all the sections that we have. So now we have the grouping in place. And we've said it's going to be on our left-hand side. This side, not within the navigation column, is supposed to be outside. Just like the way you are seeing, it has appeared here. This is a simple illustration of how it was going to appear. It is the same way it is appearing the other side. So we can also do the same for the rest of the other items, and we can also see what we have to do. So let's also continue down to the income statement. We are going to start from this income statement. Let's go slowly. From the income statement here, we are going to start highlighting from this point here, row 16. We've skipped this very line because the row that we are highlighting that has income statement is that. So we are moving 1 step and we go to that point. So we highlight shift, we hold down the shift key. Actually, you can come and say Control Shift down arrow, but that will take you too far because we'll not be having a stoppage. So what we are going to use, we are going to use the shift key, hold down the shift key, then you use the down arrow to move slowly. So we are taking everything that we have up to that point there, up to row 30. We are highlighting everything up to row 30. We can hold down the shift key, then we move slowly like this to show what we are doing. So the whole of that information, we are taking it. Just remember that here we've left one line, and even this side we have left one line. That is spacing. It keeps our work to be a little bit more professional. So instead of going through the other shortcuts that we used, you can just hit the F4 key. And your F4 key will do exactly the same thing. But since we are learning, let's hold down the shift key, Alt, then right arrow. Then you can go to OK or Enter. And we are seeing it has come even down here. We do the same thing. We are going to probably do the same thing for the rest of the things that we want also to put in a group. So here you can use the down arrow, then you to move around. Here, target IBEDA. This is the target IBEDA, the section. So we skip that line and we break off that one. So what we are going to do, we are going to highlight also that section there. We highlight from row 33 and we move all the way down. Let's use the shift key, hold down the shift key, use the down arrow, we move downwards to row 39. Then we can hold down the shift key, we use the right arrow to highlight across to that point. So that's the point where we are going to break, or where we are going to put the group. So what we are going to do now, we are going to go through the same procedure. Others, you can just hit your F4 key. If it's not working, then you go to the shortcuts. Shift, Alt, right arrow, Enter. And we are done with that section. We go to common sized statement. It is within this row 41, but we are going to start from row 42. So we start from row 42. We use the shift, we hold down the shift key, we highlight downwards until we finish these items. They are now done to row 58. Then you can, even if you don't highlight across, but if you want, you can highlight across. Shift key, highlight across. But even if you don't do it, it still comes as long as you have highlighted the other starting point. So we can now go through the same Shift, Alt, right arrow, Enter. And we have also put that in place. You can keep on collapsing these values. As we finish, you collapse. As we finish, you collapse. But for now, let's not collapse them. You can use the page down and you move around. So let's go to the percent section. Let's now go to the percent section. So I think this is the percent change. This is the final schedule, I think. Yeah, it is the final schedule that we have. Finally, this is what we are left with. So we have also to slide down a little bit to have this into focus. Just like that. We can also try to, so we have the percent change. And now what we are going to do, we are going to highlight from this cell here, from this row. We are working on that percent change. So we skip that line, then we start on the next one, row 61. We highlight downwards using the shift key. Shift, hold down the shift key, then you use the down arrow to highlight downwards until you finish all the values. We go up to row 77. We can go up to row 77, but Since it is not written there, we can stop at row 76 because the other figures, they are all done. So we stopped at that same. We do the same, Shift, Alt, right arrow, OK. And now we have that in place. So we've put in those row groupings. There is also column grouping, but that's not what we are going to talk about for now. But I just want you to know that it's also there. So we have the row grouping in place now. Now, a lot of people expand some of these groupings with the mouse, just like the way by doing this, like collapsing them. I'm collapsing them using the mouse. Even this one, I can collapse it using the mouse. Even this, I collapse it with the mouse. Even that, I collapse it with the mouse. I go to the last one, I also collapse it with the mouse. So these are the things that we did. So that's how we collapsed the things, and that's how we put them together. So you can see now they are looking a little bit like a table of content. They are more organized. So I was saying that a lot of people expand these groupings using the mouse just by clicking on that plus sign or this minus sign to collapse. But now what we are going to do, we are going to focus on the use of the keyboard. We are going to see how we can collapse them using the keyboard. In other words, we do those movements using the keyboard. But now let's first try to do some experiment with the mouse for now. So over here, we are going to click on this area here on the left, because we are using this left hand side. Maybe we'll try to zoom in a little bit, Control Alt. We zoom in a little bit to have some of the things in focus. So we've zoomed in a bit. So what we are going to do, you can just go to this plus sign, you click it once, and you see that it has collapsed. You click it, you click that minus, it groups it again. So the minus is going to collapse, is going to group. If you hit this plus sign, it's going to collapse the grouping. If you hit the minus symbol, it's going to group those values. So clicking a plus sign will expand. It will expand that section. So when you hit this plus sign, it expands that area, and the minus collapses that same expanded area, or it groups it. So when you hit this plus sign, you can be able to navigate through these different regions as you can do with the mouse. But now the other way that we can navigate these grouping levels is over here on the top left corner. Let's first collapse this. On this side, you can, this is the top left corner that we are talking about. This one. This is level 1. If you hit here, it will take you to level 2. It will collapse that. So we are on 1. So if you go to level 2, it will now start collapsing those values. So that's the other way is on that top left corner. This one is representing level 1. This 2 is representing level 2. So on level 2 here, if you click on this, if you click on this one once, it will open up, or it will expand that level, the first level. It will expand. But if you go to 1, it will collapse. In other words, this one will expand and this one will collapse that section. So that's the second way we can actually navigate through those different sections that we have there. Now, the real advantage of a structure like this one, because you are seeing this item, they are now organized like they are in data tables or table of contents. The real advantage of this structure, so as you can see, this one is acting a little bit nicer, because just imagine by hitting on this one, you find yourself expanding the whole of the sections that you are looking at, and you have a view of the information that is within those areas. So it looks nice, and it looks like a table of contents for our model. So it makes us be able to see all the sections that are within our financial model. Now we can know that the audience is going to acknowledge that we are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections that we are going to look at. So if there were 10, they can even know the time they are going to consume when they are going through that same section. So it really acts as a table of content for our financial model. And it's also very good for us to use to make sure that we have clean and professional work. Also remember that in column A, this column A here, that column A, as you can see, we put in some navigational stops. Remember, on each section we have those navigational stops. So if you use control down arrow, you are seeing you are stopping on that section. Down arrow again, you are stopping on that section. Down arrow, same section. Down arrow, same section. So you are seeing it is really moving on well for us. In this same arrow, we put in those sections. If you come here, you hit control down arrow, you will move to that down arrow again, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow. It is within that navigational column. That's why we leave that column A blank, because we want to use it as a navigational path. So it is really simple and easy to use. Now, a lot of people activate these grouping handles over here using the mouse, because it is very easy for you to click on this, and you'll be able to open some of these things very fast. But now we want to see, if we don't use the keyboard, we don't use the mouse, which shortcuts are we going to be able to use for us to navigate through those different sections that we have there? So there are so many sections that we have. So if you try maybe to go to this section here, you will also be able to see other details. As you can see them, those are directions for different things that you can actually go through and be able to navigate through. So we want to use some of those shortcuts that are going to actually help us to navigate through these different sections. Because you see, from this point even here, there is this plus. If you go to this section here for group, this is group, but on your left here, there is show details. So these various sections here, we can also use them and they'll be able to guide us and give us directions. So let's try to have some of those things and we see what we can do. So what we are going to do down here with the keyboard we are going to hold down the shift key. We hold down the shift key. And now what we are going to do, we are going to highlight from this row 3. We want to see these values that are within here. So we highlight from row 3, we highlight all these values up to row 14. You put your cursor there, then you hold down the shift key. You highlight up to row 14. There. Remember, this is row 3, this is row 13, row 14, meaning other rows, they are within that very same cell itself. So that means by selecting row 3 to row 14, it means it's like we are now selecting across that grouping. In other words, we are accessing all the things that are within that section for assumptions. You hold down the shift key, then you highlight up to that section where it ends. That's why we've been able to put in those spaces as you can see them. Now, what we are going now, we are going to tap the Alt key. When you tap the Alt key, we are going to go for A for data. You are seeing data as has A. So we go for data. And now, what we are going to do, we are going to go over here. Here, this section here, the one we've been talking about, J. And that J is going to show details. You hit J, and it's going to open for you everything that is within that cell. So we've seen that it has expanded that selection right there, and we can actually see. Now everything is still selected as we did, because we have everything in there for assumption and selected. So since everything is still selected as it opened itself, what we are going to do, we are going now to collapse it. How are we going to collapse? We go to Alt, A for data, and now we are going to this section here, this one, to ungroup, that is H. H, if you go there, it says hide details. So we hit H, and now it has collapsed back the things that we had selected. Now, if you want to expand more sections, because you may want to expand more sections from this point. Here we've selected only one. But now if you want to select multiple sections of the model and you want to see all of them at once, and it is something that we are going to be doing all the time. So what we are going to do, maybe let's try to highlight row 3, and we are going to use the shift key. We select, or we highlight all the way down to A78. So we are going to highlight again. We go to this, we hold down the shift key, hold the shift key, then use the down arrow to move all the way to this section, that one. Then you can, if you want, you can also proceed, but even there is enough. So what we are going to do now, we go to the same shortcut, Alt, A for data, and then J to show details. You've seen it has opened everything that we did. It has expanded all these sections and it has opened them completely. Now, let's collapse those same sections at once. Since they are still selected, what we are going to do, we are now going to use, since they are still selected, because they are still selected all the way down. If they are unselected, then you could just use, you could select that section. They are still selected. Since they are still selected, we go to the same thing, Alt, A for data, and then H to hide or to collapse those sections. And now it has done it. It has collapsed. We've collapsed all the sections. So that's the reason as why we always recommend a vertical model building, so that we can easily stack schedules on top of one another, and we can have connection that are all the way within the same tabs in the file. So that makes things really simple for other people to actually understand. And the other thing, to make those models stack vertically, it makes it easy to navigate. So one of the things that we are going to install is we will be able to install the navigational column, because that's the only thing that makes the navigation be easy. We do the navigation on the left hand side, and we put in some row groupings in place so that people can effectively have a nice table of contents, as you can see, and everything is just displayed in the model, and we can actually navigate through quickly. So with that done, what we are going to do, we are just going to jump to the next video, and we are going to look at some things that we can do to make the model easy to print or to save in a PDF format. So we are going to look at the next video, and it's going to be print setting. So we'll see you there as we are talking about how you can actually save your document as a PDF, how you can actually print it out in a more professional way. So let's look at the print setup. We see the more still recommendable print settings that you can actually have in these financial models. We see you there.